There we go. I'll start my stream here as well. Let me just give me a couple minutes here to like link it in a few places. Maybe we can draw a few more people in, and then we can start talking about stuff.
Yeah.
Also, hello everyone in chat.
Have you permanently changed your upload schedule? Because you used to upload every other day. Yes, I have. Uploading every other day might kill me with my current schedule.
I feel that. That is a vibe.
Yeah. It's crazy. They really have thrown me in at the deep end with regards to the amount of stuff they put on my plate immediately.
Fuck, dude, I feel that. I'm doing 5 courses right now, and I'm like learning to draw and animate all at the same time. One of which is a requisite for the other skill. It's fucking crazy.
Ooh. Animation's difficult. I knew people that did that as a course.
2D isn't awful, but like, yeah, it's fucking time consuming. You wouldn't believe it. Or maybe you would, because you know.
Yeah. It's not too dissimilar, actually, to the process of cleaning the data that I'm going through, where it's very iterative, and you're going through steps, making small bits of progress.
Good.
Over a long period of time.
We can properly commiserate, then.
Yes, indeed. I have to deal with seasickness, though, as well, so there's that.
You got me there. You'll get your sea legs eventually, though.
To be fair, I don't suffer from it as badly as some people do. But I think it's just like slightly bigger ships would help. You know?
Probably, eh? You wouldn't like sway quite so much when it gets choppy, one imagines.
Oh yeah. Lots of heave and roll. Knock down the wall and make it bigger. That would make the echoing worse. Only got a month left of school. What are you doing, Gavin? Burnt toast before the ship starts rolling? Well, actually, Windy, what I've found works for me is ready salted crisp. Which is very plain, not the sort of thing that you really want to have for breakfast. Hydrography, yes, indeed, Joseph. That is what I did. And that's actually pretty much exactly what I've moved into as well, for the time being. Will there be a how to download Silmarillion? It works the same way now as, more or less, as Divide and Conquer does. I can say that because I downloaded the public build just a few days ago. We'll be applying for Ancient and Modern History soon in the UK. I wish you luck with that. Oh, high school. Because I do hydrographic surveying, Isaac. Which is why for 3 weeks at a time, potentially, I'm off somewhere doing my thing. Which is what makes my schedule a little bit awkward. Potentially.
There we go. Should be good to go.
Hey there, Gervais.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everybody in chat. I'll be looking at both of the chats, so I'll just address everyone as a unit. Just it's easier.
It's a good thing that you're doing that, because I do not have a second screen at this point in time.
I don't have one either. I'm just popping between.
I can do that. I can do that. But I was using my TV previously, and now I no longer can use my TV as a second screen.
Morris wants to know... Oh, sorry. No, you finish your thought, and then there's a couple questions that I'll
that was my finishing thought.
Oh, perfect. Will there be a how to download Silmarillion? I could do that. It's very, very simple, though. We have an installer, and the only complications that can come with installing the mod are if you've moved your default Steam folder to somewhere else. So the installer will target the default Steam directory, which for PCs is usually in like Program Files 86 or whatever, and it just installs it directly in there. From there, you just go into your mods folder, you find Silmarillion Total War. There's a batch file included. You can turn that into a shortcut, and I've actually given an icon in there as well if you want to like make it not use the default sort of gear page thing that it uses. And then you just click on the icon, that's it. So you run the installer, make yourself an icon, put it on your desktop, and that's all. Will there be a House of Beor faction at some point? Probably not. Maybe as like a campaign thing. We are like looking, because we're working on campaign like full stop now, at maybe adding like certain like lore friendly factions, so it's not just you fighting rebels the whole time. But the House of Beor already exists in the mod, and they're a sub-faction within the House of Feanor. And they're actually a lot of their really important like auxiliary units. There's like stalkers, there's lots of light infantry and some medium infantry as well. So they're already in game. Will they be their own faction you play in multiplayer or like in campaign? No, probably not. But you might see them as a rebel faction there in Feanor, as I said.
I really like the idea of the random rebels being more than just random low tier units, honestly.
Yeah, we've been looking at some ways to make that actually pretty cool. So there's a new faction that's going to be available in multiplayer that will be fulfilling the role of rebels in certain areas, but we also have campaign-only factions like the Brood of Glaurung, which will have a few special units that are unique to them, but everything else will just be like Angband reskins. And there's a couple other ones, maybe an Avari faction for like the sort of non-affiliated elves that are still like more Aquendi, that refuse the call to make the journey to Amon and that kind of thing. They might be in the southeast, just trying to make that whole southeastern part of Balerion a little bit more interesting. So it's not just like you fight some rebels and then you have to fight elves the whole time. What we've got for a breakdown is like ultimately 8 versus 8. So like 8 elven factions, and then there's 8 non-elven factions all smushed together on the map, and then the potential for the 9th Valinor to come in eventually later in the campaign.
Yeah. Is there a peak time you'd recommend to play Silmarillion?
Is there a peak time?
That's a really difficult question to answer, honestly.
Most of the players are European, so if you're on GMT or you want to use GMT as your sort of North Star, then that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I would say like the way I've always looked at it is evening UK time onwards to sort of the early hours of UK time is probably the time I would most likely be able to play.
Yeah. My schedule's all over the place, but usually I'm free in the mornings, so I can always play with people. Like, morning for me is like evening for most Europeans.
Yeah.
But, yeah, let's talk about the actual patch and, some of the fun stuff that you guys can expect to see. And then, depending on our time, I do have class later today and some homework to do before it, but I would like to get in a game at least with you, if you have the time for it.
Yes. Yeah, that was my general idea as well.
Cool.
Like that, my limit is more sort of my own fatigue, more so than any pressing engagement.
Fair enough. But,
fair enough. We'll see how it goes.
Did I see what?
But yeah, I can be the dum asking questions of you, because I know a few things about the new patch, but probably not everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, and I might even skip or gloss over some stuff because there's just a lot to remember.
Yeah.
But we start with the obvious stuff. Obviously, we have a new UI based on WK's like Reforged, or the UI that I think he made for Reforged, but like released as sort of an open thing for anybody who wants to use it. I just goofed around in Photoshop, added some cool panels, like artwork from the first stage and stuff, and yeah, that's what we got for our new UI.
Yeah, I really like the new UI, honestly. It looks a little bit more sleek.
I think so,
the word I would use. Less boxes.
Yeah, less boxes, and I tried to make all the like pictures look kind of like old murals, basically, because like the first stage is like this mythical sort of thing that happened a million years ago. It's like our Roman Empire period, and there's like all this like there's history that gets passed
down. The Golden Age.
Yeah. There's lots of like misconceptions, and there's like historical bias and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's the UI. There's more to it than just pretty pictures, I guess.
Yeah. But what about how it actually plays?
Yeah, I guess that's the important part, eh? Nobody really cares about the UI. They just want to know how stuff plays. Well, we've got 2 obviously new factions. We've got the Haladin, and we've got the Gondolin. Yeah, that's the one. Gondolin, I think we've seen a lot of Gondolin in the last little while, so everyone probably has a pretty good idea of how they work. I'll just go over some of the sort of basic things that you need to know if you want to play as Gondolin. The idea of Gondolin is that they have a whole bunch of specialists and like a breadth of like weapon types, which are all very important for its roles in the battlefield in Silmarillion. So like your swords and your axes aren't just like generic damage units. Like there's things that each one of them are good at, and you want to bring the right tools with a Gondolin army to like do the job that you have in front of you. So we've got a lot of specialist units: Gallants of the White Wing, Shield Bearers of the Tower, Axemen of the Pillar, and they all correspond to one of the great houses of Gondolin that are enumerated.
I love that idea, by the way.
It's kind of really cool. And then they're all good at something. They're all like complementary. It's like this big feudal army, and as a result, there's no sort of unifying color code or aesthetic. Everyone just sort of does their own thing. But if you're playing as Gondolin, these are all of your high tier units here. And you're only going to be able to bring so many of them because they are a little bit extra expensive. Like I tack like 10% or so onto most of these units. The only exception being the Gallants of the White Wing, so they fit a little bit better into the cost-effective sort of mid-tier units. But everything else, a little bit more expensive than it would otherwise be by about 10%. And that's to kind of force you to pick the right tools for the job so that I can give them this like all of these different things, but they can't just like take all of them at once and just be overpowered. You know what I mean? There's strategy.
Yeah. You can't bulk out with one particular type of unit very easily with Gondolin at all.
Yeah, and the caps on things are like generous enough that you can bring like a lot of them, but it's going to cost you. So if you want to bring like a whole bunch of Axemen of the Pillar who are really good at like grinding up like chaff and like going toe to toe with like surprisingly enough armored infantry because of how high their damage is, it's going to cost you. They're nearly 1,000 each, so that's a thing. But to supplement that and to stop things from becoming like really predictable and like railroading Gondolin players into playing a certain way, you've also got mid tiers that have some fairly generous caps on them. So those are the Spearmen of the Swallow, Scouts of the Tree, and the Guardsmen of the Harp. Yeah. And they're going to be like you've got good caps on these. And the Guardsmen of the Harp are specifically tuned price wise so that you can effectively, like cost effectively, upgrade them with chevrons, and then they actually get to be pretty good. Like
this is your like light and medium troops.
Yeah, these are the medium troops here. Spearmen of the Swallow are medium as well, and then the Scouts of the Tree are a light infantry unit. But they also have slings, which is cool. Nobody else has slings in the mod, except for Toll and Gowroth. They have one unit, but basically the Scouts of the Tree are going to be most of the
a little bit different though. The slings from Toll and Gowroth.
Yeah, they're very, very much different. There's more of them for one, and the infantry or the unit themselves are actually they use an infantry template, so their stats in melee are a little bit higher. So you can actually like supplement your front line with them once they're done, and they're not going to like run away more easily the way skirmishers tend to, or get beaten in melee. They're actually like fairly competent.
Love the units for Gondolin. Great to see. Yeah, I mean, I think Gondolin is probably going to be the favorite faction for a lot of people in Silmarillion. I would make that prediction quite confidently.
I think so too.
Because of what they are and what they represent.
They've got some weird designs in there too, like the stuff that you just don't see anywhere else. Like the Shield Bearers of the Tower, especially the Gallants of the White Wing, Axemen of the Pillar, Armors of the Hammer. It's all like weird designs, but also like very colorful, very feudal, and I think a lot of people are gonna jump with that. Yeah. Yeah. Visually, I think they're one of the factions that I'm probably most proud of. Like everyone came together, but like
you can't just have one like visual template to use. You have to pick something completely unique almost for every unit.
Exactly, and Gondolin was like the dumping ground, I guess, for like all of our weird ideas for designs. So like, yeah, just like told everyone, hey, go crazy, do whatever you want here, make it colorful, make it bright, make it weird. Like this is the opportunity to be like, really creative. Whereas, we've got factions like Finarfin that have. There's a lot of like overlap in the way that their mid tiers look. They all look fairly distinctly, and then the high tiers all look a certain way, etc., etc. But yeah. Let's check chat here, see if anyone has any questions that I can answer. What's your schedule for factions that will be added to Silmarillion? We can talk about that after, because I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Matt, yet or not, but I do have a new faction that we just decided as a community Yeah, to add to the game.
I do pay attention to the Discords, even if I can't be as active as I would like.
Oh, okay.
I do,
Well, then
I do
you're up on it.
stealthily look around.
Yeah, and I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but last I looked, the poll, it was like 10-1 to add them to multiplayer and single player. Single player is an AI only faction.
Yeah. That way, if it goes wrong, you can blame everyone else for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could just scapegoat the 85 other people or something that voted. But yeah, so that's Gondolin. The idea there. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about some of their artillery pieces because you probably have noticed that they're fairly large in crew size. Gondolin in the stories, like I think it's when Tuor like passes through the various gates and he like sees all the gate guards and they all have like a particular character and like armament and whatever. I chose the 3 of them that were the most like unique and interesting because there's just a lot of archers, like different kinds of archers, and that would be sort of boring and also not doable with an artillery crew. So I chose 3 of those gate guards, and each one of these artillery pieces has a gate guard that also corresponds to the role of that artillery piece. So the ballista generally is good for, one of the things it's good for is picking on low entity units, monsters and bodyguards and things like that. So the crew has 2-handed spears, which is something that's good against those unit types as well. Trebuchet, only ever going to bring in sieges. Please stop bringing these in field battles and then going to feedback and being like, my Trebuchet can't hit anything. Why is that? It's not really for that. But they've got halberds, which is the only elven halberd in the game at the moment. And something that's good for, pushing chokes and sieges and things like that. And then the catapult are axemen, which is good against infantry. And the catapult is supposed to be used as an anti-infantry tool. So you get it.
Yes.
So
the Swordsman of the Fountain be the best unit in the game because the people of the Fountain killed more orcs than had ever been killed.
I mean,
aren't they really good? Aren't they the relentless heavy swordsmen?
Yes, they're very good at killing things.
I've seen them brought in every single Gondolin battle I've seen so far.
They're very good at killing things, but I get a lot of questions like, should not X unit be the best unit in the game? And the answer to that is absolutely not. The whole premise of the mod is to like make everything unique but not necessarily like overpowered, not like a one size fits all sort of thing. So maybe you want to bring the swordsman sometimes, but maybe you're fighting against, say, Angband, and the Angband army has gone really heavy on their armor-piercing axemen, which trade really, really well with high-tier shock infantry, like the Champions of the Fountain, or whatever they're called. Then maybe that's not going to be great. But if you can get them in there and like get them stuck in with a bunch of infantry, yeah, they're going to blender people. But if there is a unit that is the best at everything, then I've probably not done my job very well. Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. So what about the Haladin?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the Haladin. So the analogy that I like to use for the Haladin is that they're Assyrian if Assyrian wanted to stab you in the face. So there's a lot of ambush, there's a lot of light infantry, medium infantry, almost in a complete lack of heavy units. I think the only heavy unit they have is the Darawarda. Everything else falls definitively into the medium category, with the exception of the Swear to Brother if you upgrade them, which is expensive. So not a lot of heavy infantry, but they do have a lot of ambush, a lot of like mid-range missile units, so the Rigswear are good at that sort of thing. The Huskarlar are nice. The Skaldmare are a nice anti-elephant option. And then there's the Mardrot, who are... They're both harassment javelins, and we can talk a little bit about that in a second. But you're going to bring them in different situations, and they're going to fulfill different roles.
I think one of my favorite things about the Haladin is the ubiquity of relentless in there, because it makes them kind of nasty to fight no matter how you approach it, because they're going to do damage.
Yes, they're very scary. As a general rule, when I was thinking about how I wanted to make the Haladin, and that was after like binging a whole lot of Vikings. Full disclosure, I watched like 4 seasons of Vikings in like a week during lockdown, and I'm like, yep, we're gonna make that into a faction. So that's how the inspiration for them came about. But but each one of the weapon types does something specific. So spears get extra melee defense and extra bonuses in the woods on top of what they would normally get. Swordsmen are all relentless. Axemen all have increased base damage, which when it comes to calculating stats usually works out to be like, depending on the unit, 3 to 4 extra damage. So it's fairly significant. Things like that. So that everything like does something good, and that the axes with like the extra damage don't completely outstrip the swords, because the swords, they don't have to block. So their DPS is actually like very steady, very constant, and potentially quite high depending on what they fight against. The other thing I didn't want for them was for them to be like very focused on ranged combat. So they do have a few bowmen here and there, but most of them kind of lack ammunition and therefore longevity in a skirmish fight. So it's all about like choosing the moment to like launch the ambush and launch your like big attack with the Haladin. They have no high tier infantry. Oh, go for it.
Something I noticed in the most recent, it wasn't with the Haladin per se, it was with Assyrian, but you could put the same thing on them. Is I did a replay from the channel, the Discord channel a couple of days ago, and it had 2 Assyrian armies in it, and you could tell the faction that was facing Assyrian didn't want to move into them because they knew there was a bunch of stuff hidden.
Yeah.
And they ended up hesitating to the point where they lost ultimately.
Yep. That's one of the things I like about our ambush armies, is because like, yeah, okay, you can give things like the hide everywhere trait and then like, haha, it's an ambush army, but like they need the tools and they need the danger necessary to actually make those ambushes like count and like mean something. So yeah, Assyrian and the Haladin are potentially, factions that you don't just want to rush into, because they'll surprise you with a line of armor-piercing spearmen like the Warda, or like Rigswear come out of nowhere and then start pelting you with like actually fairly damaging missiles and things like that. Like, they don't necessarily have to like catch you in some Teutoburg-esque like masterwork, but
yeah,
it's
very hard in medieval too to do that.
It is very hard. So like I just don't even try. Just like, here's enough scary options that can come out of the woodwork that like you hesitate a little bit to walk into things, and then you still have the normal like, I hide this unit here and then it jumps out at you, that kind of thing. But in addition, you get that extra sense of danger, which is probably the best implementation for it I've found.
So 2 quite different factions there. But you mentioned a little bit as well about the differences between javelins now, which is probably a pretty significant change, given that people are very used to javelins being weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
And now you need to be a little bit more picky, because some of them still are, but that's not the be-all and end-all of them now.
The Philothrum have both, so I'll show them off for now. The idea there was, there's a lot of things that built up to this change. One of them was that I wanted there to be, I wanted to change the dynamic between javelins and elephant units, because like a lot of armor piercing fire all at the same unit, especially low model units like Balrogs and Sauron and whatever, can flip and destroy them. But we're also having an issue with some of our non-armor piercing javelin units, like say the Marines of Brathalmbar, just not being all that viable because they just don't have things like armor piercing, or they don't have high damage because they're a mid-tier unit, etc., etc. So the solution I came up with was to divide the javelins, and then to give the Marines of Brathalmbar that armor piercing that makes those things so like scary, but in a way that doesn't kind of step on the toes of other javelin units that already exist. So the solution that we have now is that there are 2 types of javelins. Harassment javelins, which is this one right here. The general principle is low damage, generally about 2. The cavalry units have around 3 to 4 because there's less of them. But in general, foot harassment javelin units are going to have about 2 armor piercing damage. They're going to have 6 ammunition, and they're going to have 100 range, which is pretty startling. That's
quite necessary as well, I would say, to make it work.
Sorry, what was that?
So, quite necessary as well, I would say, to make this kind of thing work.
I think so, yeah. And they've effectively got double the ammunition of the hunter javelins, which is the high armor piercing, lower velocity. So the harassment javelins also like fly faster in the air, so they're more quick to hit their target. Dodging them isn't really all that easy. Whereas, while it's not, completely childlike and just totally easy to do with the hunter javelins, it is definitely easier for your elephant units. So if you're on top of your micro and you see these units coming, it's not just a death sentence because you brought your elephant, into range, which is a problem that I think we had for a really long time in Reforged, where like someone would just bring javelins and then your Momokill just doesn't matter because the second that they get into range, they're just toasted. So now, if you're actually on top of your micro, then you can move back and forth and dodge these and like mitigate a significant amount of the damage, unless you're like tied down in close quarters, etc., etc. But there's more like player gameplay like options. There's like moves and counter moves with the system, which I think is a little bit better.
Yeah, and it gives you as well that a mid-range damaging option, which isn't a crossbow.
Yeah,
which is nice because crossbows are very, very powerful.
yeah,
Per volley.
with like a very reasonable implementation. So like the Marines went from a unit that you basically never took to a unit that like is very desirable to bring 2 or 3 of in a lot of your Philothrum comps. It just works.
It just works. Todd Howard will be proud.
What's the other thing that goes hand in hand with that? Right, there's a lot of changes to light infantry. So a lot of this stuff, like, it's like iterative. Like it happens, and then like I see something, and I'm like, okay, this would work and be complementary to this change. So we should make this and make it like systematic. Is that light infantry generally have been made faster, and we've also added a whole bunch of like different, like we've put more emphasis on like terrain types when it comes to maps. So you're gonna see things like mud a little bit more, which will like bog down your heavy infantry. But generally, your light infantry, they're mostly mid tier. I think almost all light infantry are mid tier. So your heavy like elite infantry are still gonna chew them out in close quarters, but they can pepper them with javelins, soften them up, outmaneuver them, maybe get in from behind them, go for flanks. So now it's a little bit more rewarding to have light and medium infantry as opposed to just spamming a heavy infantry corps and that just calling it a day.
Yeah, sitting in a big block and grinding the enemy to pieces.
Exactly, yeah. Well, let's take a look at chat here, see if we have any other questions. Will we get the Golden Gate Guard? I don't remember who they are. You'd have to describe them to me there, Isaac. But if they're one of the archer units, then yeah, probably, maybe you see them in the campaign. But am I right to assume that Gondolin is the elven overpowered faction like Numenor is for men? No. Gondolin is very, very beatable. Like I said, they tend to hyper specialize, so they're really good at like, you pick an enemy and you're like, that's the guy whose ass I'm gonna kick, and then you make a comp, geared towards his destruction. But if you bring the wrong comp for the wrong situation, then you can very easily get overwhelmed as Gondolin. And then the basic stuff still applies. Like if you get rear charged or something, and you allow yourself to do this, and you just don't have micro, then you're gonna lose. You can't just like fight your way out of stuff as Gondolin. Like it's very possible to lose as them.
Yeah. Also, smaller armies generally is what people I think will try and build with Gondolin because of how many high tier toys they have.
Yeah.
Which obviously leaves you a little bit undermanned if you end up getting surrounded and overwhelmed. It's a very difficult thing to reverse when that happens to you.
Yeah. I've seen people go both ways. I've seen very high tier small armies that like are obviously very strong, but like you don't have a ton of reserves, and you can, like you said, get overwhelmed. And I've seen people go really mid tier heavy with like a small number of high tiers that are like specifically chosen to fit into the comp and to like make up for weakness that the mid tiers don't cover, things like that. There's a good amount of Gondolin comps, lots of stuff you can bring.
Which is good. Last thing you want is just one army brought over and over. Your audio quality is deteriorating progressively. Hang on a minute. Let me unplug and plug back in my mic. That usually is this.
It's fine for me. It could be a connection issue on his end.
Let's see here. I mean, like I said, I feel as though quite a lot of it is going to do with the acoustics of where I am. It's not terrible though. It shouldn't be as bad as it was during my last streams, where occasionally I would be literally speaking in stereo.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Yes. So we've also got a ton of new units and legendary companies, which we should probably cover. I think the faction that got a lot in terms of like the way that it's developed their playstyle and the amount of army compositions that they can bring would be the Easterlings. They also got a lot of visual facelifts. I did some texturing on the Wardens of Lothland, the Ravagers as well, and the Marauders and stuff. They got like a reskin, so they've got like more color on them. It's not just like monochrome, like black and white.
The red,
little dash of red thrown in there as well, which looks pretty cool. But they've also got new units, so they've got in total 4 new units this patch, which is pretty significant. One is their legendary company, Fangs of the Faithless, which is a higher end foot archer that's more Ulfang aligned. They've got a lot of like downsides to them. They don't get like crazy charge values. They're not super good in melee. They're actually pretty slow. They're very slow relative to the Despoilers of Dor Caranthier, which is the unit that they're sort of the other side of the coin of. Yeah. That's.
I think I got to be honest. I do think the Easterlings needed this because while it won't affect their identity having a single foot archer. It really does help them not be completely defenseless in one aspect.
Agreed.
And I like the fact that they've been given it.
Yeah, this was a unit that came about in response to a lot of like our tester feedback, where people are like, "Can they please get a foot archer or like a low tier foot archer, just like something?" My response initially was like, "Well, no, but let's give them extra nomads, the horse archers." But that wasn't cutting it, kind of. So I was like, all right, let's incorporate the new changes to like harassment javelins. So they got the Rohatani Huntsmen, which are a harassment jav. They also got the Pillagers of Himring, which one of the other things people asked for was a Lancer, and while I'm not too keen on that, I did give them Falk's Cavalry, which is more of an Easterling thing, and they've also got some throwing axes. So they've got an okay-ish charge value. If you give them an attack upgrade, it ends up being like 20 charge, which can hurt. But they're also super fragile. Like they'll fall apart in melee. They're not amazing. They're not like melee cavalry either. They don't take penalties.
Just like the other hybrid units.
Yeah, there's a good amount of hybrid units in there. So the Pillagers are one. The Rohatani Huntsmen, they're just kind of there to throw a lot of javelins and then die off eventually. The Nomads obviously still exist. The Salamandrine Guard still exist, but now you have that foot archer as well. So potentially you can bring up to 5 units of bows. 1 foot, 4 mounted. So they're not helpless, but they're not like dominant.
No. And I think that's good.
Yeah. That was the solution we came up with. And now they have a lot more like cavalry and mobility. Like if you want to bring a ton of cav, you can bring, 8 units of cavalry with the Easterlings now, which is only a couple of them are worth their salt in close quarters, but everything else, it has a role and it's
intimidating.
And it's very intimidating. People are like, "Oh my god," even though like most of it is like Rohatani cavalry, which are just garbage and will probably never.
I'm pretty sure whoever's playing as an army like that is thinking, "Oh my god," as well, because there's a lot to keep track of.
We've had some cool games where like people go hard on the cavalry of the Easterlings on like our desert maps, and there's this huge like flank with all of their cavalry that tries to get behind the enemy lines, and then they crash into them from the front with all the infantry as well. It's super cool. But most of that cav, it's fairly harmless to you when it comes to close quarters, unless they rear charge you, in which case you have no one but yourself to blame.
Yeah. Oh, apparently it's better now. Excellent.
Any changes to Assyrian? Yes. So Assyrian is another one of the factions that gets a new legendary company. So the Kinsmen of Denethor were alright, kind of bland though, as legendary companies go. So we added the speaking of intimidating things, or things that appear intimidating, has a very long name, the Ondo Hyando and Sarnathrad, which is the Stone Hewers of Sarnathrad. And the sort of fluff behind this is that the Green Elves, as I'm sure fans of the Silmarillion out there will know, supported Baron in destroying the dwarves of, I think it was Belagost or Nogrod, one of the two, after they sacked Doriath. So they came out of the woods with Ents and Green Elves, and they ambushed them at a place called Sarnathrad. and they slaughtered them all, and took the Silmaril, and blah, blah, blah. So this is a unit that's inspired by that battle, and is sort of a preemptive measure for the addition of the dwarves eventually, but also to give Assyrian a bit of a hand against the House of Feanor, who were absolutely dominant against them previously, because they pair, that resilience and like the high armor and the high shield with some pretty strong mobility, which is a lot for the Green Elves to have to deal with. So
yeah, they didn't have that many tools to deal with that previously. It felt like all you could really do is run and hope that they ran out of steam before they caught you.
Basically. And now you have a unit that you can like focus on 1 or 2 units of cavalry, lancers maybe, or melee cavalry, or their new bodyguard, and you can just whittle them down over time. Yeah. And then when you throw them into close quarters, they've actually got a really scary charge bonus of 23. And you can boost their attack to 15, which is pretty scary. So yeah, they cleave armor. Basically, that's what they do.
And what else do we have in terms of new legendary companies?
I feel like there's one more. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm.
Oh well, the Skaldmare from the Haladin. That's their legendary company. Sort of an anti-monster thing.
The
yeah,
company
Angband.
of Gwendor.
Oh yeah, the Company of Prince Gwendor. We have at least 2 more to go through, so we'll go to the Angband one afterwards. So the Company of Prince Gwendor, for those unfamiliar, were elven volunteers from Nargothrond who volunteered to fight with the Sons of Feanor and the Noldor of Hithlum, etc., at the Battle of the Nirnaeth Arnoediad, which is what we named the patch for. And it was very unfortunate because Prince Gwendor was stationed at a point in the line where when they brought out elven prisoners from inside Angband and started hacking off their limbs and murdering them in front of the elves, he happened to be in the exact place where he could see his brother in full view getting his hands and feet cut off and then ultimately decapitated, which sent him into a fury, and he charged down, and the rest of the Noldor followed him, and then they ended up falling into a trap, and the day was lost. This unit is there to represent that, and because of that, it's impetuous, so it may charge without orders. Just be aware of that. But it's also got a very long charge distance, probably the longest in the game right now. So like they'll charge and get that speed bonus and just like run at things from a very, very high distance. But they've also got really good charge values. You can upgrade their armor, and they've got heavy armor, which makes them a little bit different from the swordsmen of Talath Dyrnin, who are the sort of other side of the coin of. They've got way better charge, they got better attack, they've got less melee defense, so they're more susceptible to armor, piercing, and things like that. But you can also upgrade their armor. And they're unbreakable and cause fear, so that's kind of nice. But they don't have missiles, they're way more expensive, and they can be a little bit unreliable in that they can sometimes run at things when you don't want them to.
They could literally ruin everything forever.
Yeah, exactly, which I think is fitting for a unit like that. So just keep them away from stuff when you don't want them to charge without orders, or just keep an eye on them. The other legendary company comes from Angband, and it's one of their second fear units. Angband has a lot of like new stuff generally. The Scourges of Gothmog. So the idea here is that they're a alternate version of the Tormentors of the Iron Crown, and the fluff behind them is that they're this sort of, I don't want to call them handmaidens, but it's the same sort of role in that they're like the servants of Gothmog, the Black Captain of Angband.
Handmaidens.
Yeah.
I like that.
I can't think of the right word. Just it's fine. You can just have a laugh at my expense.
Squires, perhaps.
Yeah, like that. But the Gothmog is the person who would like torment people within Angband. He's very.
I don't want to see an orc in a dress.
I kind of do, just like out of curiosity.
No,
like
you're crazy.
The Pirates of the Caribbean, when like those 2 pirates, like those really like rough sort of jaundiced pirates, like dress up in dresses to distract people. It'd be like that. But the Scourges are an alternate version of the heavy infantry mace unit. So the differences between the two is that obviously they don't have heavy armor, they don't have a shield, they don't have armor piercing, and they also, these guys don't inspire either. But they do cause fear. They do have a crazy charge bonus. They're the only orc unit that has high enough skill that they can really rival the elves in close quarters. They're also unbreakable, and Yeah, they cause fear. So there's a lot of things that they can do that the tormentors can't. But when it comes to there's also a lot less of them. But if these guys get trained on by even a halfway decent unit of archers, so some green elf archers decide that they want to ruin their day, they're going to do that really quickly because they've got 7 armor and the green elves have like 6 damage. So they're just gonna these units will get shredded because most of their defense is bound up in their melee defense, which gets ignored by missiles. So that's their big drawback. So you're not always going to want to bring them.
Yes.
Other than that, we do have a few new units as well. There are some in the Green Elves that I sort of glossed over. So the Kinsmen of Denethor are now a bodyguard tier unit. They do different things. They still have the slashing damage, I believe, and they have an Inspire, but they are no longer lock morale, so they can be routed. So that's something to be aware of. And they don't have heavy armor. They're now a medium infantry unit. But in addition, and I'll explain this. I know nobody asked, but it's good to explain why we have this. Because on its face, these two units are sort of similar to each other. So we have another unit of cavalry for the Green Elves. And they contrast with the Outriders of Dwelin in a few ways. So I'm a really big Green Elf player. I love Green Elves. And I played them to death. But one of the things that I noticed when I was playing is that I would win or lose my games based on the performance of basically 2 units. One of them is my Scouts of Gelion, which I think is acceptable because it's an archer. The other is the Outriders of Dwelin. So even if my Scouts of Gelion did super well, I could still very easily lose a game or have it be closer than it probably should be if I didn't use my Outriders of Dwelin well, or if I wasn't able to get good value off of them because my opponent countered them. So they're very, very dependent on this like Lancer. And it also does a lot of things. So it's like, it's an armor-piercing Lancer. It's also like good at fighting monsters and stuff like that. But it's also decent against cavalry. So it just did too much. So I decided to make a new unit that sort of takes some of the things that the Outriders do well, like the high charge, the ability to hide anywhere, being quick cavalry, things like that, and offloaded it onto another unit that is still useful and has enough of what makes the Outriders of Dwelin good that you still get what you need, but without phasing the Outriders out entirely. So now the Outriders are more of a better to use them. Oops, sorry, that's just an alarm reminding me to drink water. Yeah, that's the kind of life I've been living lately. The Outriders of Dwelin are something you're going to want to use in more frontal engagements because they have shields. They've got a little bit better armor. They've got a better charge and it's armor piercing. And they're also anti-cavalry and they do all of those things they did before, but now you don't necessarily need them because you can fulfill part of that role with the Lancers of Adarant, and you can actually take a decent amount of them. You can take 2 of them for fairly cheap. They're a good deal cheaper than the Outriders, so now you have that extra little bit of flexibility. Yeah, we can move on to another faction.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking we could move on to a game.
I like that idea. Let's do it. I will host, and we can see if we can pull in. Maybe we can do a 2v2. I think would probably be it would be stable and fun, but still short enough that it doesn't take up a whole bunch of time. And this is going to be on a public build, so anybody out there who already has the mod downloaded, you can totally come and join us. But we will be capping it at 4 people. And let's pick... Yeah, that's one of the other new things, is that we have a ton of new maps, and so many new maps. Probably a good,
Yeah, I've noticed that.
I think we have 12, brand new maps, and then a lot of maps had, a going over. So that they're, different or, more interesting.
Yeah.
We'll do the Path of the Nalgrim. This is one that Rex made, and it's actually quite a lot of fun. Had some good games on this.
He's a busy guy.
Busy guy indeed. So what's up? You guys should be able to join. I will talk about this in the meantime. That we have we didn't actually realize this until later, but this is actually true of the Reforged menus as well, I believe. That if people leave, it will break things, and you'll have to leave leave entirely multiplayer or restart your game if someone quits manually out of a lobby. You can kick them with no problem. There's just an issue, I think, with one of the panels being not the right size, and the game really hates that, so it breaks things. So yeah, if you have to leave, just have someone kick you. We are working on a fix for it, and that'll be available on ModDB, along with potentially some other cool stuff like a vegetation fade, so you can do forest battles.
Well.
Revan and Jervis. Cool. Who's on my team? You're on my team. Excellent.
Yeah, apparently so.
So one of the other things we also did, because this
Carry
patch,
me to victory.
I don't think that's gonna happen. I'm pretty rusty, honestly. Rex plays all the time.
I have not played in 3 months.
Yeah.
No, 2.5 months.
I've barely played in the last little while, just because I've been so busy. But one of the big prerogatives of this patch was to make like army comps more flexible, just give people more choices. So that's like, you know, the new units, the new unit types, but also like caps, and the budget has increased from 14k to 14.5k. Give you that extra 500, and we tried it out. People really liked it. So yeah, that's the base budget is 14.5k per each player, assuming that you have like balanced circumstances. So like you're doing a regular field battle.
Okay. Looks like we are facing evil. Angband and the Easterlings.
Interesting. So I'm going to be playing against the Easterlings. Maybe I'll play Assyrian. We'll see how that goes. But before I start making an army, let's take a look at chat here and see if there's any sort of questions. So, is there a scenario group for Silmarillion? Yes, there is. If you join our Discord, there's 2 people, one in particular, who's actually playing with us today, who make a lot of scenarios, and we're always looking for people. We've been trying to get, I think, a series of scenarios done for a French-Canadian YouTuber named Bat Bailey's, and he's been pumping a lot of scenarios for that. So that would be Rex. My suggestion to you would be to join our Discord, and just be around. We'll ping people in the Find a Match channel. There's a role you can get. It's like that warrior role. Yeah, get that and you'll be kept up to date.
Oh, boo, they changed.
Boo.
I was ready for some sweet Balrogs on Golden Flower action.
Gothmog's hairdressers. Oh, if I ever release an April Fool's patch, that'll be in there.
To Doria.
Also, the Dwarven faction will be renamed to Dirt Elves.
Dirt Elves. You love to see it. Right, what are we going to do here?
Will the host of Valinor become a faction as the ultimate elf faction with like lesser Ainur as their super unit? Valinor, I'm going to give Valinor the same approach that I give to everything else. In that I want them to be good at certain things, and I'll also want them to not be good at certain things. But in campaign, the intention is to have multiple bodyguards that aren't available in multiplayer that correspond to a certain Valar. And that doesn't mean that the Valar will be in game. It's something you can like play with and like end worlds, you know, with you at the helm. It'll just be like followers of them, so like particularly devoted followers that, you know, reference those Valar in some way. Valinor in general is they're gonna be sort of a Easterlings-esque, I guess, in that you'll have a core of Vanyar units, a core of Noldor units that stay behind under Finarfin, and then you'll have some Teleran auxiliaries. And what their legendary company is going to look like, I still don't know, but we do know that we will have some Ainur as a default bodyguard for multiplayer as well as campaign. So I wouldn't say that they'll be like ultimate in the sense that they're better than everyone else, but in the War of Wrath campaign, which is a smaller mini campaign we're also working on, they will be able to use units from other factions, other Elven factions, and those will get a Valinor specific reskin as well. So yeah. Hello, I can't say your name, so I apologize if I do this properly, but I think it's Medi Judy. Welcome to the chat.
Okay, I think we're good.
Oh, I still haven't made an army yet. Give me a second here. Who'd they switch to? He's gonna play Doriath. Okay.
I reckon this is pretty good. can we do better? Because we've got. Well, I feel like I should take a unit of them. I feel like it would be rude not to.
Oops.
But how to accomplish such a thing? Yeah, they're pretty expensive. We could swap out. Oh, you're kidding, right? Only 5 gold short? No. I'm not engaging in that sort of fraudulence. We could go for just out and out crazy.
I'm a fan of that.
I could come across as a bit of a hypocrite because I'm going to be doing the sort of thing that I
Hate
would,
when people
under
do
normal circumstances, not be in favour of at all. Okay,
This will be
this I think will probably not work, but we'll give it a go.
Let me just stream snipe you a little bit here. See what you got. I mean, go for it. Fuck it. Why not? I love that.
I was going for sort of slightly more balance, but in the end, I thought no.
Medi Judy asked, is there a new faction? Yes, I'm going to talk about the new faction, Nandon Gortheb, at the end of this and what they're going to look like, and hopefully allay some fears of maybe the more like hesitant people out there that are like, why would you ever do this? I don't understand. I'll explain why I would want to add them for the campaign, and why I think that they can be compelling and balanced and fit in really nicely in the multiplayer arena as well. So yeah, if you guys are interested in that, stay tuned. We're gonna play a game, and then I'll talk about that, and then yeah, we'll probably call it there for the day. But I'll answer some questions as well if people have any additional questions about campaign generally,
Yes.
The new faction, blah blah blah.
I am ready.
I am too. This is gonna be ugly. Let me just hand out some additional upgrades here, because why not?
This is the first time I've actually played as Gondolin.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing to it. Nothing to it. Just don't die. I'll try to save you. I don't really know what our strategy is going to be here. I don't think our armies sync up too well, so this might be a bit of a massacre, but...
There's no need for strategy. It's overrated.
Yeah, we don't need that.
No. The Virgin effectiveness versus the Chad spectacle.
Exactly. So we're just goofing around here, and I know people like they see something and then they're like, I saw it lose once, so it's therefore terrible. We're just having fun. Don't take it too seriously. We're not.
Alright, let's have a little look here. Oh, I remember this map. At least I remember the bones of this map. One of my streams died while I was on it.
Really?
Yeah. It was a while ago. I think it was like a progenitor of this map. It wasn't the exact one.
Oh, potentially, yeah. I was gonna say this one I think came out shortly before we released.
Yeah,
like
no.
April 10th or
It's
something.
it's the like mountain structure over on my side of the map that I recognise.
Ah.
Probably a sign that I've played the game too much, or at least seen the game too much.
Maybe it's time to try something new. Dark Souls, maybe.
Oh, I've been there, done that. I played that on my own time. I'm the kind of weirdo that actually played that for fun.
Did they switch it up on us again? Oh, they went Doriath.
One Zangban.
I thought they were Easterlings again.
Oh, is Doria on my side? No, that's Brown. So
Yeah, no, you got Angband. That's one of the other things we also changed, and I'll draw people's attention to that, is that despite my confusion earlier, all of the factions now have some pretty distinct colors to them. There was like a little bit of overlap before with like some factions sharing the exact same shade of brown. That is no longer the case. So black, Doriath, because that's the main color on their palette. Black and red here, like a blacky red for Crimson? Yes, that for Angband. Feanor is bright red. Assyrian is still this sort of like pine green. And then Gondolin is that bright blue.
Right. What are we going to do here?
Whatever you want to do. Just live your life.
So let's... I don't know what they're going to do, so... I've got spears, I don't need to be scared of them. You two need to definitely go over on this side of things. I want to leave you behind by any means. We are going to be splitting our attention.
That is okay. I'm just gonna play it fast and loose like I usually do, and I'll do my best to try and.
I'm not gonna put. I didn't forget to move anything from the deployment zones, and that's. We're improving. I was born ready. Is this road one that gives movement bonuses?
I don't think it's technically a road tile, but I believe that they do. But these ones are just like rock, so I don't think they have any particular bonuses.
Not that that's going to matter too much. I'm just getting my excuses lined up now.
There you go. It was the road. The sun was in my eyes. I only have one leg. I don't have skin.
I wasn't 10% faster, so I lost. This is thematic though, because I'm on the road.
I'll do my best to help you. You just call for help as you need it. I have the high ground, so we'll be fine.
Oh well, how can we lose?
Exactly.
Oh. Oh boy.
Let's see here. Move things over just ever so slightly. Ooh,
Oh, for crying out loud. Artillery? What a loser. Don't know if you've heard, but only losers bring artillery.
True. I heard that. Someone said it.
Scatter! Flee! Flee for your lives! Oh boy. You really hate to see it. That is some remarkably impressive misses. Okay, that wasn't so much of a miss. I take it back. Let's see. There's a lot of orcs. But he knows. He knows that he can't come near me because I'm just too strong.
Too strong.
Hang on here. Are they getting shot? From what exactly? Making sure I know where everything is. There we are. Marvellous. I don't mind that. Oh, is there a mangonel shot? Oh yeah, there it is. Shot right up into the air. Oh, you're really unfortunate to not hit anything with that as well.
Oh shit. Didn't see that coming. Flee!
No, you don't. No. There is no need for this. Let's go after that. I'll be spreading myself a tad thin. Right. Ooh, is that some... I see some axes there. Yes, please. What is that? Oh, they're still over there. Well, that will never do. What is that? Oh, it's the mangonel. I thought you for a second you brought a catapult as well. I was like, what on earth is this? 2 artillery pieces? Madness. You hit that? What's this?
Oh, they're in bad shape.
ally lies dead. Without their general, they may lose heart.
Ow.
Flee.
That's not good.
That's not great. Bloody crossbows. That's not good. That's a lot of orcs. Oh, don't do that. No, I'm doomed.
Doomed, you say?
Yeah.
Oof, yeah, they caught me before I could hit them. That's not really gonna do much.
When I saw Angband, I was kind of hoping he would attack me. Instead of poke and prod me. Until I was half dead.
The enemy are badly bloodied. They have lost half their men.
Let's see here. At least things seem to be going quite poorly for Doriath over on that side.
So far, so good. But I don't think I'll be able to stop Angband. That's gonna be the GG. Let's see if we can get that rear charge.
What's that in there? Oh, Scourges of Gothmog. There they are. Yeah, the Lords of the Golden Flower really living up to their anti-monster killing name there.
Okay, I'm gonna try to redeploy to come and help you. Doriath is kind of on their last legs here.
Yeah, I shouldn't have tried to split my attention. That was stupid.
Yeah, if you can, save your stuff and come back to me.
No, I can't. I'm engaged. If I run, that'll break. Yeah, that was really unfortunate.
Bring your champions at the fountain and your marksmen, heavily arched and stuff back to me.
I don't think that's going to make much of a difference, to be honest, because I barely made a dent there.
Just do it. Just do it. Last stand.
Yeah.
we still got mangonel. Damn.
Yeah, he shot me. Did the Rockslinger even kill a single Uraloki?
Our men have slain the enemy general. Without him, his troops
That'd be
will
the
lose
Arnoediad
their
general
will to
finally?
fight.
Yep.
Not soon enough, though. Problem with them is the Uraloki can just run through your entire line before you can stop them.
It's okay. We're gonna tire them out a bit. Yep. Keep falling back. Keep coming back.
Pray
Bring everything you
something
got.
changes in the course of battle, for defeat seems almost certain.
Wish Nirnaeth would just die over here already. I don't think they have their general anymore. We just gotta delay enough time to like deal with that, and then we'll have to spread everyone out because the mangonel is annoying.
Nirnaeth would have been better against me.
I think you probably would have played a bit more there, Revan. One of the things that really won it for me was that I had Rangers just killing me the whole time. They had like the perfect setup, like right over here, and they just shot you to death. That was the thing that won it for me in close quarters, not the strength of my Assyrian infantry or my micro in that game, really.
I also sent 2 units over there, which I probably shouldn't have done, to be honest with you, because I probably could have used them. On the plus side, the Chad Lords of the Golden Flower over here
Did pretty
finally
well.
might actually
still
get a
there.
chance to use their swords on the on that one Uraloki that's low.
Oh man, look at them go, eh? Yeah, Angban's got too much stuff. I really don't have anything that can stop that. Damn, yeah, he's got like a full army. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, he ran through me. Well, to be fair, he didn't. He ran through me after he shot me.
Ah, you're going after your scouts, I see.
Finally, Uraloki dies.
still got his general too. I don't even know where it is. Could be anywhere. It's probably in the bulldogs. The full bulldogs! Oh man, we're doomed.
Defeat seems almost certain. Our general shames us. Our brash general has been captured.
Oh no, didn't think he'd route like that. That's surprising.
His fate
Yeah, a lot of my units routed as well.
Oh, it's probably the mangonel. Yeah, it's a shame you weren't able to do a bit more against Angband there. We're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, he just ran right through me. A sour taste.
Indeed.
Oh Jesus, even the champions of the fountain are routing.
Yeah, too much routing. It's a shame. I think I could have, like, I probably could have taken this Angband army if, like, we would have been able to switch places. I think you'd have done really well against Doriath, too.
Yeah.
Damn.
Not how I wanted my first game in 3 months to go.
Yeah, well, it happens. Yeah, I'm surprised that they crushed us the way that they did there. I was expecting we'd put up a bit more of a fight, especially with my general in the center, but I don't know. It's just a lot. That's just a lot. Yeah. Oh well. The rest of my army is fleeing.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened to me, only en masse. Like, he shot me first, and then when he came forward, my army crumbled.
Yeah, I think if I were you, looking at your comp again, I would have gone a bit heavier on the hammerers. Like, the armorers are really good at dealing with a lot of Angband infantry.
I only could have brought one more of them, though. That wouldn't have been enough to reverse this.
I wouldn't have brought the marksmen. They're really expensive and not particularly suited for fighting Angband.
Well, they were more for in case Doriath came over. It wasn't really for Angband.
Some people came back.
The day is saved.
Whew.
Defeat seems almost certain.
Well, that's a nice moral victory.
Where did we get there? 65%. Oh, there they go. Oh, my general came back. That bloody coward. If he hadn't crumbled, I was like just about to hit a rally button, and then he like died, or he routed and got immediately captured.
Probably didn't help that my general died before the battle actually started.
Oh, did he? That would be why you had a lot of trouble, because like losing your general like that.
He got sniped by the mangonel before it properly started.
Yeah, that's just luck. Yeah, general wasn't able to get there in time. Kinsmen are probably going to rout off pretty shortly here.
Our armies
We get that extra
running from
percent?
the
No,
field.
we didn't.
We must rally our men before all is lost.
I've got 3 Lords of the Golden Flower.
Well, the day is saved. Where are they?
Killing thralls in the trees.
Look at that. Oh, looks like you're down to 2.
No, there's still 3 there.
Our custom walled settlements in the works. We're learning how to make those sort of custom, like big, grand set piece custom settlements from WK. It's just a matter of being able to find time to sit down with him and actually do it, because, you know, time is a resource that we're all very short on right now.
Oh, yeah. Man, look at them go.
Man, they're still holding on, aren't they? Impressive.
Mulching their way through. Where is all the other stuff? Oh, it's on the way.
Is the campaign advancing? Yes, people are working on it. Everyone is working on it. That's the focus for the next patch. Like all patches up to this point have been multiplayer, but now we're putting all of our energy into the single player. How is campaign going to look like? That's a pretty general question. Do you have something specific that you want to know about?
Oh, no. Oh, they're back.
Reinforcements. The day is saved. We're going to get that extra percentage, and we did. It's the little things.
When did they return from routing? Nice of you to return now.
Right?
Champions of the Fountain.
They're going to rout before I think they hit anybody.
Oh yeah, they're doomed. They're getting shot by poison arrows as well. Meanwhile...
Horrifying. I don't think they'll get anybody.
Back in the real fight.
Right. This is what it all comes down to right here. Lords of the Golden Flower, blundering thralls. They're killing like a lot of them. Like an obscene.
Oh yeah.
You mad just inflating his kill count over here?
Yeah. Covers up how poorly I did.
Hell's routing so easily in the first stage. Again, he lost his general to an artillery shot. Yeah. And I was horribly outnumbered playing as the Green Elves, who don't have great morale for close quarters. All about winning that skirmish fight. So I won my fight, Sephiroth. Yeah. So you probably shouldn't be so quick to judge, because I can only assume that you just got here.
I lost. There are the Bulldogs. I see them. Have any of them died?
The Bulldogs? No, they were full. I don't think you killed any of them. I didn't manage to get any of them either.
Meanwhile, they're still going. These 4 thralls.
Let's see. Down to 83. They killed any of the... Okay, they've killed 1. Yeah. I love how the rest of the Vanguard is just like letting this happen.
Well, they're only thralls. It's like a pit fight.
Yeah, scouts are pretty good against Hellman too. 3 or 4 of them eat up a halberd line really nicely.
Golden Chevron, here we go.
Hell yeah.
Oh, there goes another one. We're down to 1.
There you go. It's not really that strange. This is a game, right? There are game mechanics, there are rules that we play by. So when you lose your general, you take a big morale hit. That's just gonna happen. The only way we cannot do that is to inflate morale to preposterous levels where, you know, tactics and preventing yourself from being surrounded become irrelevant. So at the end of the day, it's a game we're trying to make and we're trying to play here. Not a 100% accurate Tolkien simulator. So yeah, elves are going to rout. If they lose their general and are losing the fight and are outnumbered and are getting surrounded, it's going to happen. That's just, mechanically, everything points towards that.
Listen, Gervais, you've already lost. You may as well surrender.
Wouldn't that be a surprise ending? The general just has a heart attack.
It is not too late for mercy.
While we're here, you can actually see the Angband and Tulin Gauderhoth and stuff like that actually have custom generals now. We don't have the like old leftovers of like the Nazgul and stuff anymore. So That's one of the other things that I don't think we talked about, because it's like a little detail, is that a lot of named characters are in the games, so you're going to see them in like relevant units, or as generals. The Green Elf general is now a proper Denethor model instead of just Thranduil. Things like that. So there's just a lot of like little detail work and stuff that went into this patch, and a lot of that is actually thanks to Stuart Dale. So big thanks to him for that. Although that being said, Gothmog is still hanging out in the Bulldog unit, but we'll fix that eventually.
Yeah, there was only 4 of them that engaged with this as well, I'm pretty sure. Or some ridiculously low number.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Doriath unit in there now.
Oh, the marksman. We do still have the old Third Age banners and stuff, but that's something that we're going to be working on for the next patch, is like getting all of the banner bearer banners differently, but also the ones that you can see to identify units on the field quickly. All that's gonna change to something a little bit more lore friendly, a little bit more custom designed.
Oh, there he goes.
We've been dealt a stinging defeat.
Finally laid low.
Look at that! Look at that pile of dead orcs there. Lords of the Golden Flower. Give him a hand. I like to think that they're cheering for the elves, even though I know that's not the case. There we go.
My.
Let's take a look at what we managed to accomplish. So one of our Outriders did okay. Like I said, I'm pretty rusty, so like my micro was not particularly impressive that game.
I've fully oxidized.
Hunters all did okay. The scouts, again, the scouts and the Outriders getting most of the kills.
Yeah, my shield bearers got rolled.
Randirum got 161.
255.
My sentries did really well too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything that needed to perform performed, and everything else just held the line. Typical Green Elf stuff.
There you go. There you have it.
There you go. We'll save that. Sorry, Rex. Gonna have to put you there, bud.
We're back onto the main menu.
I'm gonna name it 2v2 UMAD Shame.
Yep, there we go. You really hate to see it.
I'll take a screenshot as well for the Discord. So that is going to be our game for today. Hopefully everyone out there is more or less satisfied with what they saw. But now is a good time to talk about the new faction that we're looking at. And this was all done by community vote. I got a weird idea while having a conversation with some people in our Discord, and then I was like, hey, we can turn that into a thing. So let me just quickly pull up the notes on my phone, and we can talk a little bit about the roster for Nandon Gortheb, which I currently have a draft of. Perfect. And so, Nandon Gortheb, our 14th faction, rather, in addition to Valinor. What I want this faction to do in campaign is probably a good place to start. So the idea came about when we were talking about different things in campaign and how to add a little bit of spice and a little bit of flavor to the campaign map. Doriath as a faction is if you look at where Doriath is on a map, they're basically surrounded by friendly people on all sides. And that would make for a really boring campaign, especially for people like, I assume, Sephiroth, who like their lore, who don't want to just kinslay the whole time. They want to have enemies that they can fight, and they don't just want to immediately rush to their nearest friendly neighbor and break down their door and put an axe through their skull. So Nandon Gortheb adds a little bit of early game danger to Doriath in a way that is kind of scary for Doriath to handle, but also in a way that Doriath is very well capable of dealing with. So the faction itself is going to focus mostly on light infantry and skirmish, which is fairly different for an orc faction. Most of the time, they just get absolutely bodied when it comes to trying to win a skirmish fight with the elves, because they're just better. They've got better range, they hit harder, Their skirmishers are just generally superior to yours, and they have things like horse archers, which the orcs completely lack. But also a lot of light infantry. So there's no medium infantry; it's pure light. And I've actually created a new tribe of orcs here. We're going to talk about them. We're going to go through my little notes here. So the orc tribe are and I know people love big long names. That's why I did this specifically for you. Dusa, which is based on the Valarin word for marred, something that is imperfect or broken in some way. And a lot of this tribe are going to be largely unbreakable when it comes to their infantry. Their skirmishers will be breakable, so you don't have that problem of just like unstoppable blocks of skirmishers, but their dedicated infantry units, i.e. those using an infantry template, will be breakable, or unbreakable. And they're going to get some pretty sizable bonuses to their attack, to their charge bonus, and they're also going to get strong bonuses in the woods. So the sort of place that Arnoediad is going to be fighting most of the time, in the forest. They're going to get lots of bonuses there. They're also going to have a lot of monstrous cavalry, as Nandon Gortheb is this area it's almost Dark Souls-esque, right? So there's a lot of like horrors here, and it's conceivable, at least in my mind, that some of the disgusting, nameless things that Morgoth would have bred in the pits of Autumno would have made their way here, in addition to the spider broods of Ungoliant. So you will have some spiders. The tier for them will be the Karangwi, which is Sindarin for Crimson Web. The first unit you're going to see is a hybrid archer. It's like a hybrid archer / spear cavalry unit, and they will be mounted on big-ass spiders. They'll have really strong charge, extra mount mass, so that when they collide into you, you're going to feel it. But spiders generally will have high damage, but they won't have a lot of defensive stats. So if they stay in close quarters and people are hacking at them with swords and axes, they're just spiders. They just have like chitin. So they'll fall apart pretty quickly. So a lot of mobility, a lot of micro, and a lot of skirmish that's going to go on with this faction. It's also going to be the first orcish mounted bowman. So that's kind of cool. In addition to, obviously they'll have poison arrows, and these will be elephant class units. So it's not just like spider cavalry, they'll be elephant. So they'll be fairly low model count. Get about 8 of them in a unit, and you'll be able to bring up to a maximum of 3, at least currently. And their poison on their poison arrows will be a little bit stronger. So I think currently it's -2, but it'll be -3, maybe as high as -4 for their particular arrows. Next, we have more spiders, the Karangri Gore Swarm, because I wanted to just go like disgusting and savage and really communicate that through the names. And the idea here is just little swarms of spiderlings. They'll be elephant class units, so all the bonuses will apply against them. But they won't have a lot of mass, so they'll function a bit like the Haladin chariots, in that they can't like push through, formations and just like run them over and slaughter them. They'll all be 1 HP, and they're going to have penalties against cavalry. So that's one of the things that a lot of units, like the Dusa as well, will have penalties against cavalry, and they're also not going to have any foot spearmen. So that'll be a big part of dealing with them, and a big hurdle for players to overcome when they're playing as Nandon Gortheb.
Don't want to play against Valinor.
Nope, and they're a fairly nearby neighbor. So the things you want to... There are some things that you can do, like obviously I won't make them totally helpless, because that would suck. You just get countered in the lobby.
Yeah.
But there will be things that they can do. But they won't have any footmen that are able to really handle it. Not in close quarters, anyway. Next, we'll have the Karangwi Broodmother, which we're going to use some of the... probably some of the spiders from Botet. I'm going to ask their team, and they're usually, like, totally cool with it, as long as you, like, ask and give credit and that sort of thing. So we're going to use their big Spider Queen model. And it's going to be this sort of more slower moving, sort of tanky thing that would be one of the few ways that they get armor piercing in this faction. Won't be a ton of armor piercing. It's also going to have, at least this is the plan, it'll have a custom projectile that's like spitting like green acid, essentially, like green fire. And it'll be very, very like short range, like a tiny cone in front of them. But it'll be armor piercing as well. So that'll be some of the few ways that they get their armor piercing, and one of them will be from the Broodmother. And in addition to that, I actually didn't mention this before, I don't want Nandon Gortheb to use siege equipment. Obviously, that would be weird. So a lot of their monsters, like the Karangwi Broodmother, for example, will have something that helps them destroy walls or destroy like fortifications and stuff like that. So she'll function also as a battering ram, and that's what the acid will be useful for as well. But in a more limited way, because obviously there's ammunition associated with it. So she's a replacement for siege weapons, or the ram specifically. Next we have... Yep, go for it.
Well, it feels almost like they're like this, almost like a rabble of sort of discordant monsters that have just sort of bound together.
Yep. That'll definitely come across, but there will be like... You can't just run at people. That's the thing that I don't like about a lot of monster factions that I've seen in like other mods, or that I've had pitched to me, is that they're very one-dimensional. Like, you just get monsters and you run in a direction and you kill people. I don't want that to be the case with Nandon Gortheb, and that's something that I'll be paying like very strict attention to. So, yeah, they'll have lots of monstrous units, lots of like savage things that are, can be good in close combat. But again, this is a faction that's going to be very dominant at range, at least initially. Soften people up, and then you move in with the monsters. And there's some other cool tools that I'll show you right now. And this one, probably, I don't know, this might be a little controversial. I'm a big fan of StarCraft, and I think that conceptually this unit has a lot of value being in this faction because there's so many elephants, and there's so many ways to counter elephants. So next I have the Karangwi Baneling. And the basic idea here is that these have stealth traits, the highest stealth traits. They can hide anywhere. They're sort of moderate speed, but think of them like the Isengard bomb that you use on more than just walls. You can throw them at people. My intention is to have models with 3 per unit that do damage in about a 15 or so model radius. So it's not going to like blow up an entire formation, although it will destroy a wall very quickly. But they will move towards formations of, say, polearms, for example, one of the natural predators of pikes or of elephants, and then self-detonate, and kill a whole bunch of them, help soften them up, help the ranged units kind of do their work. It sounded like you had a question there.
That would be better against their fellow orcs, which is quite interesting.
Yep, orcs and Finarfin are kind of the things that I have in mind there. Or potentially against, just as a little bit more of a broader usage for them. Because they can hide, you can maybe use them to assassinate an enemy command unit, like say the Otorn Mighty Mo get overextended and they're not really like paying attention, and then suddenly some banelings come out of nowhere, and then boom, your general's gone.
Yeah.
Which, as we saw, can be very, very scary.
Oh yeah, perfect example.
And the idea is that this unit will be able to help the elephants and the light infantry beat, heavily armored factions that, stack up pole arms and heavy infantry on their front line that would otherwise be more or less impossible for your light infantry and for your elephants to take on alone. So you'll be able to bring potentially up to 4 of them, but the trade-off here is that they are a little bit slower and they don't have a ton of armor. So if people see them coming, or if you let's say you run them across a field and people can see them and plan for it and send out horse archers, then they'll die off pretty quickly. So that's the big thing there. But they will be relatively cheap, that being said. Next we have, because I could have just given them trolls, but I didn't think that would be very fun, because Angband has trolls already, and it's just not interesting. So what I came up with instead is a sort of weird hybrid unit. So they're called the Urush Abominations, Urush being the Valarin word for fire. So they're fire abominations. And the reason I'm using Valarin is because this is a rival for Doriath, right? And Melian is a Maya. So some of the more unnameable or unknowable things are going to be named in the Valarin tongue, because I think she would be better equipped to recognize them for sort of what they are, rather than the elves who would just be I don't know what it is, I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
That's my thought. But the Urush Abominations would be another elephant unit. They're beasts of sort of fire and rage that were created by Melkor in the days of Autumno to serve as shock troops in his armies in his war against the Valar. And the idea here is that they can hurl flame, so it's more flame weapons. That means good against light infantry, not so great against shields and heavy armor, over very long distances. So they're going to act as sort of anti-light infantry, anti-medium infantry artillery, or something that's good for punishing blobs.
Okay.
you'll be able to bring one of them, and they have a new special rule that I use for the purposes of balancing called Eldritch Horror. And that means +1, or they have one cap, +15 to their cost. Their red price goes up by 25%. Their speed is decreased, but they use a template called Crushing Jaws, which means they'll be armor piercing in close quarters, another source of that for the faction. And their charge distance will be increased mightily by +40, and they get another 12% charge. So they're slower, but if you get too close to them, they'll rush at you and basically just beat you to death. We just played a game, Cination, and that's our one game for the day. So we're just going over the new faction, Nandon Gortheb, right now, before we shut her down. Let's see. Talked about the Banelings. Then we have some more Spider Cavalry. This will be one of the bodyguard tier units, and it's the Karangwi Bloodgorgers. The idea here is to create another 2 HP cavalry unit. These will be armored spiders as opposed to your sort of run-of-the-mill.
I'll be interested to see how they look.
I will too. I have a few ideas, and I think there are some people on the team who would be very suited, like based on some of the work they've done on the Balrogs, for example, to add in some cool like armored bits to the spider models that already exist. Skyly is the person I have in mind, in fact. He's the one behind the Balrogs and also the Iron Shot upgrades.
Right.
But yeah, so the Bloodgorgers, 2 HP Spider Cav. They'll be armed with swords. They'll have the highest base armor of, actually the highest armor of any faction, or any unit in the faction aside from the monsters. And that'll be a base of 10. They'll be capped at 1, but they're like heavy melee cavalry, basically. Next, we have the Dusomanuthan Gorgers, and they're the only heavy infantry available. This is a 1 HP bodyguard. They're sort of the spider riders, but not on spiders. And you'll get 80 of them in a unit, and they can upgrade their armor, and their base armor is 10. So the choice between the two things there is the extra HP, the mobility, all that nice stuff that comes with being Cav, versus some extra killing power from the axe and some extra survivability from the armor.
Seems like they remind me the most of the Haladin, if I had to compare them to a faction that already exists. That they're like a little bit more hit and runny, guerrilla warfare.
I'd say they're very similar. The big differences are going to come in with the lower tier units that we're going to talk about now, and you'll start to see you'll see some similarities, but when we get to like the ranged units, that's where it really starts to sort of become apparent what this faction is going to be really good at. So the first unit we have is the Dusomanuthan Flesh Terrors, so named because I really like Warhammer 40k, and conceptually they're very similar to the Flesh Terrors Blood Angel chapter. So there you go. They'll be fast, shield armed, they'll have axes, they'll use shock infantry templates, so they'll be a bit faster than your average light infantrymen, and they also get some nice bonuses to their charge damage and things like that. So that's what that's going to entail. They'll get an additional plus 10 charge distance in addition to everything else, so they'll probably have about 30 or 40. Plus 2 in the woods. This will be an unbreakable unit. The intention is for them to be capped at 6, and they'll upgrade their attack for the inexpensive 40 florins. Or Mirian is what we have now. Next, we have the Dusomanuthan Skull Splitters. They'll dual-wield axes. They're sort of... I think the differences between these two units will become apparent here. So they dual-wield axes, but they also have some throwing axes. They use an infantry template and speed, so they're slower than the other unit, but the base damage of their attacks is increased even further by plus 1. So they're going to hit harder than the other guys, like in sustained melee, but they don't have the survivability, and they don't have a shield, so that's the thing. They will also upgrade their attack for a little bit cheaper, and they get plus 20 range on their throwing axes, and a lot of their skirmish units will have that. Next, we have the Dusomanuthan Predators. These are harassment javelins. They're going to hide anywhere. Harassment javelins generally have about 100 range. These guys will get plus 10, and they'll get an additional 2 ammunition, so they'll have 110 range, 8 ammo, and you'll be able to bring 4 of them in total, which is pretty scary. They're also a little bit faster, and they get additional upgrades in the woods over the other 2 units. Then we have the Beast Hunters. So these are a 3 damage archer, 160 in size, but unlike most archers, they get capped at 1 or 2. These guys are capped at 4, so you can bring a crap ton of them. Flood the field. Yeah. Now, they're not unbreakable, but they do gain plus 2 morale. They're axe armed. They'll have a tiny little shield, and it won't be very big. It'll be like 2 or something like that.
Like a buckler.
But because they don't have spear units, these guys are going to get a +6 bonus against all cavalry. So it's a little bit of a weird choice there, and I don't know if this will work out because conceptually these sort of things are very polar opposites. But the idea here is that you can like screen effectively with your Dusa and Beast Hunters, and then you don't have to worry about cavalry as much, and you can use your anti-cavalry tools or your elephants and things like that in other ways without having to worry so much about babysitting these little archers. So that's the idea.
Like ablative armor.
Yeah, exactly that. And then finally, I think this is Unit 12, we have the Dusa Bone Gnashers. And the idea here is that they're hunter javelins, so the anti-elephant, high damage, etc. They're going to be wargs, so they'll be mounted. They'll be only 60 in size, 1 hit point, but they're going to get +20 to their range, so from 80 to 100, so that basically erases one of the big bonuses of being a hunter javelin. They'll be capped at 3, but I believe they're also going to lose 1 ammo, so they'll have 2 instead of 3. So they hit hard, they're very mobile, they've got the extra range, but you won't have as many javelins to go around because they're both small and they lose the ammo. Not unbreakable, but they do gain charge damage, and they do have +4 morale, and they have axes as well. So they're not awful, but like they're more of a supplement to some of your other monster units that we've already covered that are kind of the killing power.
Yes.
And yeah, that's it. That's the whole thing so far.
Interesting. I like the idea that there's another evil orc faction being added. I feel like it just helps balance things out a little bit. Because I know you were wondering about that because you wanted to keep it within the lore, but there's only so much you can do with that without it just being angband.
Yeah. So when I was thinking about them, I kind of just like, what if we had angband with a little bit of like Assyrian thrown in there? Because one of the things I've heard, two of the things that I've heard about the mod is that it's very elf focused. Obviously, it's the first age, but also that there's not enough micro to go around on most factions. Anyway, it's a lot of like infantry related things. So I wanted to bring a new faction in that was one unique, not just between the other factions in the mod, but also specifically among the orc factions. That's like totally different from how they play. But I also wanted to bring a little bit of extra micro to the game, something a little bit more with a little bit more of a skill ceiling, sort of in the vein of Assyrian, for example, which are very micro, very missile focused, and you have to make good choices there. These guys, I want them to like have that missile aspect, but also like picking good fights for their monsters, and like being able to get good value off of those is going to be the key to victory, because the Duso Manuthan orcs will just bounce off of most things.
Ooh. Looks like we may need to hurry along a little bit. OBS seems to be giving up the ghost a little bit. Connecting and reconnecting there.
But yeah, so that's the faction. The intention here, because I do see someone asking, is this a campaign-only faction, or will it be a multiplayer as well? The intention is for this to be playable in multiplayer, much like Valinor, but not something that you can play in the single player. And unlike Valinor, there won't be a campaign where you can play as Nandon Gortheb. It's just there to be scary for Doriath, give them something to fight in the early game that's not just elves, but also to bring them into multiplayer, because it's a cool idea. It works in multiplayer, and it's pretty unique as far as the rest of our factions go. So yeah, that's the new faction.
Well, there you go. It's been nice to actually play the game again after a fairly lengthy absence with all of the craziness that's been going on.
Yeah, it'll be nice if we could get another one of these in again soonish. But I know you're busy and I'm busy too.
Well, I'm not on call for a little while yet, so it's something that could definitely be possible.
Yeah,
within the next little while. I think towards the end of May is when I'm back on call. And then, obviously I won't be able to because I won't actually be here probably, but I'm sure we can figure something out. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because the campaign streams, from my perspective, really can't happen because I can't really clear enough time to make that a regular thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's shelved at the moment.
Well,
I do intend to bring it back at some point, but
if it fits into your schedule a bit better, we could get you like some scenarios. Like I'll pitch you an idea, I'll pitch you a story, and then if you like it, then we'll go and we'll make it, and we'll do like 2 or 3 episodes or something, like a short story arc.
Yeah, that seems like it would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
we could play them live as well. At
Yeah.
least hopefully.
Totally. Yeah, we could do them live, and then if you wanted to do a more like story focused thing, then I could. I understand you have a limited amount of time, but I could make you like an intro for it. I'll do like a story intro. I've been doing those for videos nowadays, so it's fun.
Yeah. Well, we shall play that by ear, because I definitely want to do more stuff like that, I think.
For sure.
So yeah, I guess we'll round off by saying what's coming up soonish, I suppose. Would you like to take the lead on that?
Oh, soonish. I mean, like channel wise or like mod wise?
Both.
Channel wise for me, I'm just playing it by ear. Like I said, I'm doing for those that don't know, I'm currently working my way through a game design degree, and I've got 5 courses, and I'm not someone who can really draw, so I've had to like learn all of that on the fly, and like I've been doing well at it, but hella time consuming. So my channel is, I upload as I can and as I'm able to, but I can't really plan or promise anything other than I will be playing the Rome remaster relatively soon.
Right.
Mod wise, actually I would be remiss if I didn't plug our community RP at least once throughout this whole thing. We do have a community RP going on. In terms of gameplay, you can expect sort of Risk D&D meet Total War, like the Total War campaign. So we have a game board, we have factions. I think most of the factions are fairly full up. We are looking for some extras, and if we get a lot of interest, then we'll open up factions even further. But basically, it just adds a lot of context and like stakes to your game. There's a lot of politics that goes on in it, and a lot of like subterfuge. It's actually really fun. I personally find it very compelling. But yeah, so if you guys want to get involved in that, or just get involved in any sort of community scenarios, etc., the best way to do that is in our Discord. If you guys are not on my stream, I will quickly get you a link to our Discord.
Yes.
And you can come and join us over there. When's the third age patch coming? I don't know, man. I'm not on the Reforged team anymore. I have no idea when or what the patch is going to look like. I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
Yes. Nor can I. It's I'm not the best source of information about that either. Yeah, when it's ready.
Yeah, when it's ready. Soon, TM.
Well, from my perspective, I can promise a regular schedule at the very least. I can go for 2 videos a week. Any more, and I think I would implode. But that's something that I can definitely do. And streams like this, I would say, would be sort of an added extra every now and then, which is, I think, the best way to do it, because it's a little bit more freeform and I can fit it in when I do have a free moment, but I can't really plan in advance for it as much as I would like to, as much as I was doing when I was doing the campaign streams. But yeah, the video that was going to be coming out today was actually going to be a Silmarillion one, and that will be coming out tomorrow instead. And that was given to me by Kamul, and it's a free-for-all. And it'll move on from there. I've got videos actually recorded and uploaded at least a month and a half in advance, because I know that when I leave, I'll be gone for weeks at a time. So I want to make sure that the channel will continue in spite of that. So yeah, that's pretty much it from my perspective at the moment, outside of a dedicated channel update stream that I could do at some point.
I mean, it sounds like you got a lot on your plate right now too.
Oh yeah.
But your position, is it like a permanent one? Like, are you like set with this?
Technically, it's permanent, yeah, but it's also it's one of those things where it's a permanent position, but I know that I'm going to have to move on at some point. If you know what I mean?
Right.
Because there's only so far I could advance in this place, because they can only have so many higher level people there, and those positions are already filled. So this is really just to get experience before I move on.
Well, hopefully none of them are listening.
No. Well, to be fair, I think the intention for me would always be to do maybe a PhD at some point. So
it's a lot of work. I wish you the best of luck.
It's a lot of work, but this is a lot of work as well. So
true.
Doesn't matter what you do, you're always going to be ground into oblivion.
That's the spirit. that's the vibe of 2020 right there. You will always be ground into oblivion.
Oh yeah. You just got to keep trucking through it.
All right. Well, I gotta go and I have like animation homework and stuff I gotta do. So this was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Hopefully we can do more. Hopefully I'll embarrass myself slightly less with each passing stream.
Yeah. Next time it won't be you mad shame. It'll be like you mad. Eh.
Yeah, like not bad. Like you still lost, but you know we're getting there.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely.
I mean, I was hella rusty in that too. There's a lot of things I could have done better. So don't worry about it.
All right. Well, it's been nice. I'll close mine down first, I think, because OBS has been complaining at me. So from my stream, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next.
And I'll close mine down as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this, everybody. If you have any questions, concerns, you can always leave them on my channel, or I highly recommend you come to our Discord and chat with me there, because that's actually the best way to get a hold of me, because that's what I check every day.